housekeeper had no idea she was being filmed. She would make sure to arrive every morning to see Daniel off just before he got to work. It became a friendly morning ritual, but for the maid, it was much more. Daniel couldn't ignore the warning signs any longer. He installed cameras and secretly watched her in horror as she used his house for her own personal affairs. 32-year-old Daniel Evanson was an ambitious businessman. He was a workaholic who spent endless hours in his office refining business ideas for his company. He started a coaching company by himself when he was just 25 years old. Now, it was a growing business supporting over 100 employees. Needless to say, he was a busy man. But while his professional life was booming, his personal life took the hit. Daniel's life was spent in the office. He hadn't quite mastered the whole work-life balance thing. He was a bachelor and struggled to keep on top of his housework, so he decided to hire help, or so he thought. He watched the screen with his jaw unhinged. Daniel couldn't believe what she was doing. His heart raced as anger washed over him. When Daniel hired Sarah as his housekeeper, he had no idea that she was hiding ulterior motives. She was young, pretty, and seemed harmless, but that wasn't the case. Initially, her work was flawless and he loved coming home to a clean house. She also left flowers in the house for him. It was a professional touch that he quickly got used to and loved seeing. Little did he know, the flowers were far more than a professional touch. And they served as a sure warning sign of what was to come. Daniel was greeted every morning by Sarah, who would arrive at his house just before he set out for work every morning. She'd clean while he was away and was supposed to be gone by lunchtime. Weeks passed with no problems. But soon, Daniel began to notice something strange. It seemed like the more time passed, the less clean the house had become. Often, it looked like the floor wasn't even vacuumed. But what really began to bother Daniel was the strange smell that began to linger. He also noticed that his electricity bill had increased dramatically since she started working for him. He got an idea. Daniel decided the best way to understand what she was up to was to install hidden cameras around his house. After all, he was paying her very generously for her work and expected it to get done. But Daniel wasn't at all prepared for what his camera would capture. Daniel greeted Sarah in the morning as usual and went off to work. Once he got to his office, he logged into his security camera system. So far, everything seemed to be normal. He put away his phone and tended to his duties. When the workday was done, he logged into the security cameras again and was shocked to see her only beginning to leave the house now. She should have finished hours ago. He sat up from his chair, went back to the start of the day, and hit play. He fast-forward, watching as Sarah made her way around the house, picking up things and cleaning the countertops. Suddenly, she began to act completely abnormal. Daniel's heart dropped as he took in the bizarre sight. It was completely outrageous. Daniel was fuming as he drove home. He couldn't believe he let someone like that into his house for that long. As soon as he got home, he emailed her. He sent her the video along with 2 simple words: "You're fired." He decided not to pursue legal action, but anybody else might have. What did he see? Daniel caught his housekeeper taking off her clothes and throwing them into the washing machine. She walked around the house in her underwear and made her way to his bedroom. Daniel watched in shock as she began to try on his clothes, dancing around his room. Then she sat on his bed and sprayed his cologne on herself. But that wasn't all. After she washed her clothes, she put his clothes in the washer. Daniel watched as she snuck one of his t-shirts into his bag. Suddenly, he remembered that he thought he had misplaced 2 other items. There was no doubt in his mind that she took them. Daniel fired her, but he was still worried about one thing. It became clear that this woman had an obsession with him. He wondered if she'd be back or end up stalking him. He kept his security cameras installed and added more outside. After a few weeks of radio silence, he concluded that she understood not to push her limit. She was lucky he didn't press legal charges to begin with. But not everybody agreed with his decision. Daniel shared his story online. He shared parts of the footage and warned people to vet their housekeepers properly. People were in disbelief at the recording and urged him to press charges. "If you don't pursue legal action, she could do this to someone else," one user commented. But what do you think?